Hey everybody, Verthandi time again. Now, as you can see, I have gone in with some brush-on primer to fix all of the chips and dings and whatnot from handling the model. And I can see now that there's a spot here where I can improve on that a bit. These really raised areas are very hard to keep paint on. It easily rubs off. But anyway, I'm gonna start working on this lower area now. And to begin with, the actual shoes themselves. Now, these, I don't know how much you can see in the glare of the white here, but there's fur, there's these sort of shaped pieces, kind of armor, probably cuir-boilé, that is hard-boiled leather armor. And I think this little bit here is actually a part of that, but the bottom here, it seems like she's wearing some sort of shoes composed entirely of leather straps. I'm just going to take some leftover paint from painting the other leather sections, and I'm just going to slather this on here. And now it's been sitting on my wet palette for a while, so it's kind of thin. I'm just going to see what this looks like if I dab this on. This is sort of a base coat, but it's behaving a little bit like a wash because it is, as I said, very thin. So I think this video will have to have a lot of cuts in it where I let the paint layers dry. As a matter of fact, I think I will cut from here to when I've put on enough layers of this that I'm happy with it. And then we'll see where I go from there. Well, that's enough of that color, I think. Let's see if we can start highlighting it. I'm going to see what colors do I have here in my palette I can use for highlighting. Okay, this will be lighter, I think. How do I hold this so I can see it? There we go. And just highlight the ridge here. Can you even see what I'm doing? I've been thinking a bit about this part of the model and how much work I want to do on it, and I've come to the idea that these actual shoes themselves, I mean, nobody's going to look too closely at them because they are far down on the model and they will be close to the basing work. They will be in amongst the whatever I put on the base, the foliage or whatnot, and probably partially obscured. So I'm not going to do a fantastically detailed job of painting these feet. I'll put a little more work into the greaves and fur section up here because that's a bigger portion of the model. It's more visible and yeah, it's going to draw the eyes more. But these boots, honestly, I think I'm going to do one more highlight and then I will probably actually just wash it with something to create some more contrast, because we don't really need a ton of detail here. I'm still being careful with the application of this layer, you know, just because I'm not going into tons of layers doesn't mean I should be sloppy with the ones I do put on. And let's see here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put some new paint on my palette for the next highlight, because this paint I'm using right now has been here for a while and it's extremely thin. Which would be great if I was doing, you know, detailed glazing of an area that was very visible, but I'm not. So let me grab very quickly, put a fresh dot of bone white there, because the old bone white was 90% water by now. And just take a little bit on the tip of my brush and just hit the tops here. This is going to be a boring episode, I can tell. I don't know if I'm going to fit anything more in. Well, yeah, just to make it a bit more fun, I think the actual painting of these boots is going to land at somewhere like 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe. I can use the last 5 or 10 minutes to start on another section. This will be not great for my principle of titling these videos. What am I going to call this part if I'm doing 2 different sections on it? Logistical issues. But I'll use my imagination and come up with something. I'm putting the final bright highlight of white here on the very tippy toes of some things. And it's very thin white, because so it's not gonna be very visible. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna let this dry and be back after that. So that's done. Now I'm going to do something I rarely do on a display model like this, but for such a small portion and an unimportant one, I'm going to use simply Armor Painter Quick Shade Dark Tone and just give these boots a wash. And because the sculpt does have a very clearly delineated ridges and such, this is going to create a bunch of contrast because the shade is going to run into the crevices and stay off the raised portions, hopefully. And it's going to look a bit grungy and dirty, but that's okay. It's boots she's been tromping around in the wilderness in. They should be dirty. And, well, now the contrast looks really extreme. When it dries, it's going to color a little bit of the highlights. Yeah, it works partially as a glaze, you know. And yeah, while I have some of that left, I can use it to maybe shade under here. That's going to be useful later. Just kind of establishing the borders between various parts of the sculpt. Yeah, well, let's let that dry for a bit.